Great, good to see you, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Joanne Meter, who you know well from Historic Hudson Valley, is on her way. She's going to follow me. I just want to make a couple of introductory remarks, and then Joanne will touch on a little bit of substance. And because of the press of business tonight, we'll be brief. We would love to be invited back at your next meeting or whenever is opportune, actually to make a more technical presentation, but we can begin with just a few thoughts. So first thing I wanted to do was just identify that from Historic Hudson Valley, I'm the head of staff, the president of Historic Hudson Valley, and have been with the East Parcel Project for a long time, as has Joanne. When we come back, we'd like to bring Tim Judge, who, among other accomplishments and past roles in the village, engineered the boat club dredge that dewatered on the East Parcel. And Sean, who is Dan's almost overlap colleague at WSP, who's working with us also. And we'd like to take careful note of the concerns, comments, questions that might come up tonight, so we can be certain to address those in follow-up presentation. I want to just speak briefly about the close cooperative relationship that exists between the village of Sleepy Hollow and Historic Hudson Valley, and why we're motivated to continue that relationship to address anything from the installation of a sewer pipe recently, parallel with Continental Street, the coordinated fight against invasive plants in that part of the Pecanico as it weaves through us and through DeVries. Strategies to improve bicycle and pedestrian access, and we just won a joint grant from the village and Historic Hudson Valley on that front. Six-figure grant to make improvements there. And in the case that we're here about, to improve the stormwater retention capacity of our mill pond, which is silted up over the years, to its ideal, which is a 14-foot acre capacity to protect the Pecanico River shed from our property down through to the Hudson. Just a quick thumbnail of what's old and what's new at Phillipsburg Manor. We continue to invest in the physical site as well as programs. This fall, a new Legend of Sleepy Hollow Discovery Walk, a new event called Twilight Village, the Spirits of Sleepy Hollow, which was a magic show. We try to get the magicians to get the mill pond dredged by magic, and they weren't quite up to that, but we're gearing up for the fall. And as always, we get in touch, and I'm not sure everybody is cognizant of this. If not, I hope you will be. We get in touch with Dan and Anthony, and we ask from time to time each year to use Commons property for parking. And we currently have a request before Dan for these events that I just mentioned. And we're very grateful for that.
Did you have events last year?
We closed up a lot in the pandemic, and we've kind of come gradually back. We had that big event in around this time of year at Phillipsburg Manor called Horseman's Hollow. A lot of people have asked us to bring that back. We're not bringing that back because it's too intimate with shouting and screaming, and So after the pandemic, nobody wants to do that, but yeah, definitely we're amping up the public programming. We've got a full roster of school groups there, so. Tonight, we're here seeking your concurrence to allow us to use temporarily a corner of the commons nearest us for a period of dewatering dredged materials prior to their removal off-site. And we're coming to you now because we don't have sufficient acreage on our property to dewater the volume of dredged material that we need to remove from the mill pond. And we need to further develop the conceptual plans that we have that we'd like to summarize briefly that Joanne will for purposes of cost estimating, permitting, and fundraising for the dredging and dewatering project. But so while the actual project won't proceed until late 2025 or early 2026, the project plans need to be established this year so that we can begin the permitting and funding process preparatory to doing the work toward the end of next year. That's why we're here in September, even though the dredging wouldn't be for a while. So now I'm going to stop talking and maybe switch seats with Joanne so that she can be on screen.
Oh, do you have it? Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to, while she's speaking, I'm going to pass out some images. Joanne, we've got about 10 minutes.
Do this.
It's Speaker.
So what I'm going to be referring to some of the graphics that Bill was handing you, so I'll point them out as we go along. He sort of gave you the big picture, and I'm going to drill down a little bit more, try to flesh out the details. Starting with a little bit of background on the mill pond. As you probably know, it's an important historic feature. It's part of Phillipsburg Manor. It also has an important function because without water properly flowing to the grist mill, it's inoperable. And that's a key feature of kind of reenacts the 18th century mill process that was taking place at that time. But just as important as those sort of local features and elements is the function of the mill pond in the entire watershed. It's actually the primary flood control device at the base of the watershed. And when it's not operating, that can create severe downstream flooding, as you've probably seen. Return to that very first figure. This was taken in December of 2023, so less than a year ago, when the mill pond was completely flooded, as well as most of the downstream area that covered virtually all of the western part of Phillipsburg Manor and DeVries Park and a little bit of the northeast corner of the what was called East Park, one of the sleeping for comments. So that really encapsulates in one graphic why we're here and why Historic Hudson Valley needs to tackle this problem. It's really the holding capacity of the pond combined with the height of the dam that controls the flooding downstream. If the pond has sufficient capacity to hold back floodwaters, Historic Hudson Valley has the ability to sometimes lower the dam and release water from it to increase the holding capacity on a temporary basis. If there's knowledge of a big storm coming, they have the ability to tweak that function of the dam. But when the mill pond is as shallow as it is now, there's nothing that's really accomplished by lowering the dam because there's really no capacity to be created at that point.
Is it ever been dredged?
Oh, yes. I was
Like,
about to, 20 years ago, I was about to tell you about the past history. The last time the pond was dredged was about 20 years ago. The amount of material needed to be dredged at that point in time was a whole lot smaller than it is now. And where it could be contained on site, that's what was done 20 years ago. But now we're dealing with sort of different circumstances. And therefore we have to look at other options to deal with location storage. As Adele mentioned, the design for the pond is such that it should have 14 acre feet of holding capacity. It's down to 1 acre foot. which means that it's lost 93% of its holding capacity. It's a radical departure from where it needs to be, which sort of explains why you see the picture from 1993. It's been constantly declining as sediment from upstream locations gets caught in the pond, you have nowhere to go, so the depth gets shallower and shallower. So it's basically those conditions that have prompted Starbucks to try to grapple with this issue and figure out to solve it. So I'll tell you a little bit about the proposed project, which the engineering analysis has shown that 20,000 cubic yards of dredge material need to be removed on the pond for it to function as it is intended to or as it needs to. And so it's that volume of material that needs to be stored temporarily. Historic Hudson Valley wrestled with where to put it, knew that it could not possibly accommodate it honestly. If you look at the next two figures, you'll see that the second figure behind the flooding one shows this is the figure that I showed to you a couple of meetings ago when I asked to be on this agenda. It shows a sort of a conceptual rectangle. That's the location that's been tentatively identified as suitable for the establishment of this temporary storage area for what are called geotubes, that I'll describe to you in a little bit. If that area works out suitably, it can be maneuvered a little bit, it can be rotated, it can be reconfigured slightly, but it needs to accommodate 20,000 cubic yards of dredged material. The sediments in the mill pond have all been tested in recent years to the satisfaction of the DC and the permits that needed to be obtained to do that testing. And the results showed that when the sediments are completely dewatered, the residual dry material will qualify as clean fill. And Historic Hudson Valley has already identified a soil broker that's willing to take that clean fill.
Right.
The assumption that it's not going to be needed on the common site. And we've been led to believe that that's probably the case, that it wasn't.
You know, we.
Yes, me too.
What the size was in comparison to their,
I think when, yeah, I think it was closer to 5,000 cubic yards,
our.
what we dredged from,
So you
yeah.
got 4 times that.
So that was at the
Yeah.
beach club? Okay, yeah, we knew that you had that experience. And I think we also learned that it wasn't really suitable though, you had to add more material to it to make it function the way it needed to be. Didn't have load bearing capacity or something along those lines. So as Waddell mentioned, there's this long-standing cooperative relationship between Historic Hudson Valley, the village, and prior to that, for many decades, with former owners, General Motors. And so there's always been this collaborative problem-solving arrangement. And we're hoping that that will continue. Because of the proximity of the corner, the northeast corner of the Sleeping Hollow Common site to Historic Hudson Valley, it's hoped that that would sort of provide a very convenient location for this function to occur. The concept would be to actually install a pipe, which is one of the next, I did skip one accidentally. This figure here, which some of you might be looking at, shows the floodway that has been defined by FEMA. None of the storage area of these watering devices can be located in the floodway. When you superimpose the floodway on top of the Phillipsburg Manor site, as well as Breeze Park and Common site, you see pretty clearly how much of that area is restricted. So it's necessary to look outside of that area to find a suitable size location for installation of this temporary storage area. The next figure shows this one here, shows an example of the type of PVC pipe that would be installed. It's a flexible pipe. Sections are actually fused together to elongate the total length that is needed. It would start at the Mill Pond Dam, and it would be pumping the sludge and the slurry out of the pond, and we'd be transporting it westward across Phillipsburg Manor property, and then eventually into these geotubes that are to be set up in that storage area. The drying out period is approximately 60 to 90 days. It could be a little bit longer, it could be 120 to 3 months is about average. It's very standard technology that's proposed as sort of the top of the line product that's proposed to be.
Feels like you're saying, folks.
It's very possible, yeah, it could be.
So can you just talk about, so it looks like there's like a layer at the bottom to like a impermeable layer, is that right, the white?
This was an installation at another location that we just showed you as illustrative of what those tubes look like.
So,
on the
so are
aerial view.
these, so how high are they?
I think the preliminary plan for this application, I think was 7 feet.
Okay,
But
so
they
the
can be-
pipe comes in and then it just pumps it all in? And then where does the water go when it's coming off?
Did you ever see them?
I think
Yeah,
it's
it's very, so the
Yeah,
suction, it's all dirt
yeah,
and these big black sacks, if you.
like inner tubes basically full.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
huge.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
It allows the water to seep out of this 3-month period and you're left with.
Is the water sucked out or does it just come out?
No,
Okay.
natural.
And then where does the water go? It just
I
leaves?
think it was natural flows that
So the tubes are not impermeable, they let water.
they let water flow out, and then at some point, there's also some evaporation going on. That's
Got it, okay.
Major component.
So what, it's pretty straightforward. So what's your plan for the fill? Are you planning to try and sell that or something?
You have a broker that has said it, he would accept it. There is a there is a written consent that he would accept it. It's not finalized in terms of formal contract yet, because it's still a ways off. But there is some commitment to accept it.
And it's,
Okay.
you
And
think
I
it's
think
twenty
that
thousand?
HHV, pardon me?
You think it's 20,000?
It won't end up being 20,000, because
Okay.
by the time the water
Got it.
drains out of it, it's a lot less than 20. The engineer is still working at the actual.
Okay. And how much did we import to I'm just trying to, like, how many dump
thousands that?
Okay.
Overhead.
So this would be like 10% of the. Like, I'm just thinking dump truck
terms of
traffic
order.
and how it comes in and
That
out.
still has to be computed in
Okay.
terms of truck traffic
Okay.
impacts and over what period of time,
Okay,
but so we can try to get some answers to you on that.
okay,
But that's. Six.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably, it would be. And then, it would be a defined period of time and it would respect all the additional protocols that have been put in place in terms of hours of operation. Frequency of truck traffic, days of the week and all the rest of that.
and would the pump would be, I'm assuming, at the pond,
Would be at
and
the
then it
pond.
just comes, so what, would there be any pumps or anything? Here, or is it just
I'm not aware of any.
No.
filling it up? Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, in answer to Mike's question, the sort of the conceptual schematic I see showed 7-foot height. But every time this kind of technology is used, it's customized for the site. So what I saw initially as a schematic. Yeah, did show that 7-foot sort of elliptical shape, if the height being 7 feet. But
So
they can be piled on top of each other, for double stacking, so the footprint is a little
so
smaller.
that's, I think. Yeah, helpful. I kind of understood what you were needing here. Prior to this, with this brings it all together. I think the biggest question for us to figure out, before we meet again, is how many of these things? I'm just thinking back to how many we had. For 5,000, I mean, this was it covered a lot of acreage, so I don't know if you guys are there yet,
Well,
but.
Translates to about 49,000 square feet. If it remains at that
But then
footprint.
this picture here, is this our?
I don't think so.
No, that's not confirmed.
No,
They. It's not intended to replicate or depict
Yeah.
exactly what's proposed. Give them an idea of what it would look like from the air and.
But do you have the exact square footage?
I think what we'd like to do is come back with Tim and Sean. Who can answer all the technical
Okay.
questions. As soon as you'll have us back.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be the big question.
Yeah.
It's how space would it take up and. It's the sequencing, it's the timing, because there's a lot going on. Down there, especially over the next 2 years, I would imagine, so just. We certainly want to accommodate you, and I think it's in everyone's best interest to get the pond dredged, right? It's.
Yes, there is specific management that people need to get access to it throughout that time.
Certainly would need to be inspected,
Yeah, I mean, in terms of.
subject to inspection.
There's several. There's like. Not entirely sure what form your endorsement would take or the board of trustees. I think Star Hudson Valley is looking for some written letter that basically says it's okay to use this corner subject to obtain.
So
Permits and-
this picture.
I'm not entirely sure, the engineer or the environmental, no, actually, the environmental consultant supplied it to me.
Because this is about the size of. And
The one that was done,
if you
And
got
he
four
was-
times its size.
he was involved in that project, so it could have been, it could have been the same example. It could have been, it wasn't sourced in it. So it
It looks like.
does,
Okay.
and the planning board presumably has to approve a wetlands permit, and then there's 3 state and federal level permits that are required, DEC. Department of State and Army Corps of Engineers, so there's quite a long list of
Right,
permits that have to be obtained. It's always possible. In combination with the funding requirements. So in terms of what we'd like to leave you with tonight, and sort of teeing us up to the next stage. It's first to try to get on that next agenda so we can have our engineering and environmental consultants present to answer more specific questions. To obtain some kind of concurrence letter at some point from both of your boards. Engineering plans have to be developed, as Wendell said, funding and budgeting all have to be considered. And the lead time is long, so I guess. First thing is to see if we can get on as soon as possible next agenda, so we can continue this in more detail.
yeah, we'll get you on either the next one or one very soon. I think the most important thing from my perspective is to get the footprint of how much space it's gonna take up, and also as specific as you can be, the timing, what period will the sacks be there? If you figure, ballparking that, if you started the project, when would you think you'd start the project?
Probably at the end of next year, like December of 2025.
So it's possible everything could be gone by early spring.
Right. Certainly by June, July, I would say.
Right.
If we have a lot of spring rain, the dewatering is gonna take a longer time.
The winter affects it too, right?
If it's frozen, it doesn't.
So those are the two important things, and we'll need to.
Is there a way for you to give us any guidance on? What might constitute a reasonable footprint versus one that you think is too large? Because as I said, sometimes the tubes can be stacked. So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. You can present a one-story scenario, which is what was
You
initially.
gotta give us some time to analyze it. The 20,000 being 4 times what we've already experienced was a bit shocking, so let us take away
Sure.
that number and at least. Game out what might work. For that size. And it'd be good to hear from Tim and the others too, especially if stacking is
Yeah,
available, that could minimize the acreage you're taking up, right?
absolutely.
Who
Stacking
knows,
is,
maybe things have changed since we did it.
No.
So maybe-
stacking is possible. It slightly slows the dewatering evaporation, but it also contains the footprint.
Yeah,
So we will work with Tim and Sean and we have those answers, but not tonight.
okay. So we'll assume 20,000 roughly and kind of end of 25 and the late spring of 26 would be the.
That would be our target.
Yes, okay.
For the placement, does it need to be as close as possible? Like the tube should be as short as possible, or could it go anywhere here?
It can move around.
As
Yeah.
long as it stays on.
Yeah,
That's the primary
right, so this can't go in that. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Right where you were moving your pen is
Yeah, okay.
exactly what place we
Question. You didn't have enough space, some of this going into your
We're trying, for the sake of efficiency and containment of cost, we're trying to put it all in one spot. Yeah,
Yeah. No, that makes sense, I get it.
yeah. Thank you so much for
Yeah, good to see you.
inviting us. Nice to see you all.
We'll
Appreciate all you're doing.
we'll get back to you and let you know which
What date we're.
meeting makes sense, so.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Surprise, thank you, yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
You think- okay,
Yeah. Because they do get them. Potentially to open.
Yeah. But I'm saying if it was a ridiculous.
Oh, I don't think it can go there with this. So, maybe. Because then that's.
Like, across the line.
But.
We've had that issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You didn't notice it.
Was that me?
This meeting.
But she said she put this.
But isn't,
And you saw it put together as a bunch.
Yeah.
You have to do it. Schedule it. We could talk about three people here, we talk about a quick update on some purchases like quick. We want
Three of you can.
But I don't want the board.
Places. And now to Dan's update.
Do just a couple quick items. Some work completed as part of the phase 2 project over the past couple of weeks. There's been granite curb deliveries. Precast wall unit deliveries are up to about 68% of the total required to construct the full wall. That means that there's really only about 20 to 25 loads remaining, which can be delivered over a course of 5 days once the wall gets closer to completion. So the contractor has put a pause on deliveries to the site as they're more or less running out of room down there. They're still working on a couple of change orders related to quantity adjustments, demolition of 192 Beekman, street lighting and parking additions. And then I wanted to just quickly jump over to the skate park project. The village project team had a good call on September 3rd with the design team, Woodard and Curran and Pillar Design Studios. This was specifically to review the skate park design. A couple of concepts that Pillar's been working on were shared with the board. They solicited feedback specifically from folks that are in the village's skate park committee. And they are planning a public info session for later this month. With the intent is to solicit public feedback on both the skate park and the overall project. So that's a necessary step to comply with the grant funding as part of this project. We also got the draft audit, which is currently under review from EFPR. So we'll set up once the final draft is delivered, a presentation by EFPR so that we can go through the normal adoption process and Paris reporting and all that good stuff.
When will that be? How far out is that?
I don't know if they'll have it together enough for the next
Couple
meeting,
meetings?
but probably, yeah, within the next 2 meetings, we'll try and get that just taken care of so we can stay
Okay.
up to speed on all the Paris stuff we have to do. Went through the HHV presentation, and then there were several requests have been made over the past, within the past couple of days, really. One for HHV to utilize the east parcel. This is separate from the dredging. This is just for staff and overflow parking for weekend, day and nighttime events through the end of September and into early November.
How does that work with security gate?
They, for these events in particular, they utilize, I don't remember the name of the vendor, but it's a parking service. So they have attendants with they control traffic, the work. So they'd be responsible for opening the gate,
Okay,
controlling, and then closing the gate when they're done.
okay.
Yeah, we've done this before for them, so that's fine.
And then the second was a local company looking to lease some space on the east parcel for their trucks and some materials. So this is something I still have to get some more details on and work out, some of those details, but that's it's potential for, this we have to consider with everything else, right? There's only so much space out there with.
You didn't mention that it's a long term.
This would, yes, they would be looking for an annual lease of at least 1 acre, possibly more.
You can do HHV because that was specific in the TMD. In terms of community uses by HHV, but other commercial stuff bumps into zoning. And the deed restrictions, we just need to take a look at that. Okay, commercial fence company might talk into it, so.
Right.
This is it.
That's it.
There's just, that's random.
Right.
It's not-
Native license.
Okay,
And that's more or less everything for the public session. If we want to go into exec to discuss anything.
yeah, I'd like to ask for a motion to go into quick exec, just to discuss legal matter?
Motion, we go on with that.
All in favor, say aye. Sorry, I didn't ask if anybody had any old business or new business.
All moving. Second.
See you guys later.
Yeah, business.
Okay. You here for anything specific?
It's